The Goddess of Water and the Fair Rainbow. Long ago, the world was very dry and hot. Before the goddess Aqua arrived, there had been no water for many years. The plants were brown and the animals were thirsty. Then Aqua descended from the sky. She poured water from a magic shell and the fair river started to flow. While the world was becoming green and beautiful, a fire demon was watching from a cave. His name was Ibnis. He had hated the water since the beginning of time. Suddenly, Ibnis attacked the valley. He tried to burn all the trees with his fire, while the fire was burning everything. Aqua fought back with her blue trident. Finally, Aqua won the battle. She had transformed the demon fire into colorful light before the world burned away. This light became the first rainbow. Because she had saved the world, the rainbow stayed in the sky as a promise. Now we see it every time the sun shines after the rain. The Herd Fruit Tree. Long ago, the world was a peaceful place where everyone lived in harmony. The young god Eros dwelt in a garden of eternal spring, and for many centuries he had been spreading love across the lands with his golden arrows. While the sun was shining over the meadows, Eros would watch the animals and humans find their companions. Life was perfect because Eros had created a bond of kindness that held all living things together. However, a dark goddess named Iris had been watching the world from her cold throne for a long time. She hated the joy that Eros had boiled one afternoon while the birds were singing in the trees. She descended from the clouds and shot a black arrow into the heart of the garden. The flowers withered instantly because it had poisoned the ground with her shadow. Eros knew something was happening even before he saw the darkness. See, he took his golden bow and confronted her. The two gods fought for hours, while Eros was throwing shadows at the trees. Eros fired a brilliant shaft of pure life. The arrows collided in the air with a loud crack because Eros had been fighting for the sake of love his light was stronger than her darkness. The black arrow charged and transformed into gold. Where the arrow had made a new tree suddenly sprang up from the earth. This tree had leaves shaped like her hair and fruit that tasted like honey. It had saved the world, and this tree remained forever as a symbol that love always overcomes discord. The Great Lira. In prehistoric times, the world was shrouded in a silence that grew ever denser with each passing seasons. The land had suffered for generations under the curse of the mountain, a peak that stealthily all sound, leaving the village in utter silence. There was no laughter, no person, and even the river flowed without a murmur. Many heroes had tried to break the course, but no one had returned. One day, a young hero named Lyra appeared. She was known for her strong spirit and unique magical voice that could enchant will best. Lyra felt the pain of the silence war. She prepared herself knowing the journey would be perilous. As she mustered her courage, she remembered the old tales her grandmother had told her about the dark power of the mountain. Lyra climbing, wishes, whispering mountain. As she grew taller, the silence became more ominous. Deep in the heart of the mountain, she found a colossal black stone that pulsing with an unnatural energy. The stone had stolen all the sounds of the world and throbbed it with this energy. Lera knew she had to sing. With all her might, she began to sing a melody that had been passed down through generations in her family for centuries. A song of pure, powerful, powerful sound. The planet stone trembled as lyric sounds filled the air. The stolen sounds began to be released from its core, burying the powerful silence. Lyra continued to sing even as the mountain shook violently around her. The stone couldn't contain the vibrant sound, with a final magnificent result. The black stone shattered, a great sound erupted from the mountain, releasing all the trapped noises. Laughter and bird song filled the sky, and the rivers roared with joy. Lyra had broken the curse. From that day on, the mountains were known for their issues, carrying Lyra's heroic song through the wind, reminding everyone that even in the deepest silence, a single voice can bring back the music of the world.
Whispering with love. The thoughts what had lost his shadow. Be Alex Duarte. Once upon a time, There was a football lived in a quiet forest. He was always boasting about how clever he was. On evening, while the sun was setting, he suddenly noticed that his shadow had disappeared. The fox had been walking near the river when dark clouds covered the sky. He ran through the forest and accosted the owl, the rabbit, and even the old turtle. Before the sun had begun, the animals were resting peacefully. They were feeling confused because their tongue had disappeared. Finally, the rain started to fall. The fox galloped. That won't leave. There was no shadow. We told it there was. Moral: do not accuse others before you understand the trap. The hummingbird was feared the wind. B. Alex Duarte. In colorful jungle, there lived a tiny hummingbird who was afraid of strong winds. She had always avoided flying to it because she had heard stories about dangerous storms. One morning, while she was gathering nectar, the sky became dark. The wind began to blow fiercely. She was trembling because she had never faced chill weather before. Other bees had been preparing their nets for days, but she had ignored the sea. When the storm arrived, she had discovered something important. She was stronger than ever. She had tried again and again. She found a safe one. By the time the storm ended, she had discovered something important. She was stronger than she had barely bet. The Only Truer and the Broken Cloth by Alex Duarte. Near a small village, an old truer found a broken cloth. It had fallen from a traveler's back. The truer had never seen such an object before. The rabbit had been watching it carefully. One day she asked why he was worrying so much. The Tyrrell explained that he had realized he had wasted many years moving slowly. They thought they had lost precious time. The rabbit had been watching him carefully. One day she asked why he was worrying so much. The Tyrrell explained that he had realized he had wasted many years moving slowly. He thought they had lost precious time. Moral: time controls those who fear it, but peace belongs to those who value the present.
The Last Train Home by Ana Marcela Picalua. It was a cool Friday evening and the rain was pouring down on the platform. Elias was standing under the old station clock, shivering slightly in his thin coat. He had missed his usual train because his final meeting of the day had run much later than expected. As he was checking the schedule on his phone, he noticed a woman sitting on a wonder bench nearby. She was reading worn out paperback and she looked incredibly familiar. Elias suddenly realized that they had attended the same university years before, though they had never actually spoken. He gathered his courage and decided to walk over. Later, he asked tentatively, and the woman looked up and a bright smile broke across her face. Elias, I haven't seen you since our graduation ceremony, she exclaimed. While the wind was howling outside the station wall, they sat together on the bench and began to talk. Lyra explained that she had moved to the city only a few months ago. She has been working at a small gallery nearby when the storm started. They laughed and they recalled the difficult ancient history exam they had both served. Suddenly, the loud whistle of a train screamed through the station. It was the last train of the night, puffing steam into the cold air. Elias looked at Lyra and realized he didn't want the conversation to end. He had spent years focusing on his lonely career, but in those 20 minutes, he had felt a spark he thought he had lost. And the train doors were closing. Elias stayed firmly on the bench. Lyra hadn't moved either, and the train pulled away into the darkness, leaving them alone in the quiet station, ready to start a new history together. The Sketchbook in the Rain by Ana Picalua. Elam stood under the dripping heavies of Judd's station. The sky was turning a bristle purple, and a relentless rain was lashing against the iron tracks. He had finished his shift at the archive an hour late, and he was feeling the weight of a long, lonely week as he waited for the final train. As he was checking the timetable, a girl stepped beside him, shivering. Her name was Veda, though he didn't know it yet. She had run through the dog park, and her bright yellow coat was soaked through. Elion realized he had seen her many times before in the quiet corner of the city library, always reading the same poetry collection he loved. The 7:15 is the light again, Beda said, her voice barely audible over the thunder. They began to talk, and the cold air suddenly felt warmer. She explained that she had lost her umbrella to a sudden gust of wind near the park. Elian noticed she was holding a worn leather sketchbook, the same one he had admired from across the library aisle week earlier. When the train finally hissed into the station, the crowd surged forward. In the chaotic scramble to board, the sketchbook slipped from Beda's back. Elian reached for it, but the heavy doors were already sliding shut. He watched through the glass as the train pulled away, seeing Veda's panicked face through the window as she realized his precious drawings were gone. Elian didn't wait for the next train. He ran to the next station 3 blocks away, clutching the books to his chest to keep it dry. When the doors opened at the north terminal, he saw Beda standing on the platform, tears in her eyes. He stepped forward and handed her the book. In that moment, as their hands touched, they both knew that the storm had brought them together for a reason. The Locket in the Rain by Anna Picalua. Ilora was waiting at the desolate station while the wind was howling through the iron rafter. She had forgotten her umbrella in the rush to leave her apartment. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadow of the ticket booth. It was Julian. She had seen him every night for a week, always watching her from a distance with an unreadable expression. Julian stepped into frighteningly light, his coat down from the storm. He was carrying a silver lock that Hilora had lost months ago in the city park, while she was staring at the generally in shock. He explained that he had been trying to find the right moment to return it. He had followed her tonight because he had noticed someone else trailing her through the dark street. The tension broke as Hilora reached out to take the precious heirloom. They finger brushed, and she realized she had never felt such a strong, sudden warmth. She had expected a villain, but she had found a guardian instead. Thank you, she whispered. Julian smiled, but as the midnight train finally arrived, he vanished back into the mist, leaving Eldora with a racing heart and lingering scent of cedar.
Absalom by Diana Quintero. At 98, Absalom used to sit in his old armchair, looking at the distance. He spent the whole day waiting for the lunchtime. He was a survivor of the generation of 27, a man whose mind was a library. The atmosphere in Absalom's house had kept the emptiness and solitude after his wife's death. He had been feeling her absence after 12 years. Every morning, he looked himself on the mirror. His eyes had already forgotten the wonderful of the sunlight. He felt the weight of a century, wondering if his existence could have been more than a shadow in his mind. The ghosts of his youth were not kind. After their parents passed away, Absalom was left under his older brother's care, Edward. Edward believed that the child's spirit was something to be broken. His voice was the only loan at home. Absalom spent his adolescence learning that love was a feeling Edward refused to provide. This cold behavior had become a hollow in Absalom's heart. He spent the next 5 decades in silence. Absalom became adult. He was working for a long time for a big cars company until he reached his 50s. One day, when he was visiting his pal, a woman much more younger than him ran through the door. Despite the decades between them, they shared a smile. 3 months later, Doris and Absalom had fell in love and decided to get married. Their marriage was a scandal to some, but a miracle to Absalom. The hole in his chest got full of happiness. While Doris was learning about cooking and toys design, Absalom worked. For the first time, he believed in the bright side of the sun. Absalom and Doris were enjoying the arrival of his first son, Leo. However, the shadows of the past stuck nose in what they believed a sweet home. Leo was looking like his uncle Edward, eye-cold, calculating, and hungry for power. Even as a child, Leo noticed the perfect way to manipulate their parents. Doris tried to deal with him gently, but Leo preferred this ambition. He was growing up just counting the days until his dad's strength would finally fail. The couple's life suddenly was marked by a grief that never truly left the house. Between Leo and their younger sister, Diana, there was a ghost. A child lost for an abortion that broke something essential in Doris. They tried to move forward for the sake of the children they had. And even when the time had passed, the words that never had been said started to hurt the peace in Doris' health until the terrible day when the doctor notified them the worst. She got a terminal disease, and she will only had less than 5 years to live. When Doris died at 58, the family split. Leo took advantage, behaving himself as a shark. Through a series of cruel legal manipulations, he became the family home's owner, as he knew that his father was even older and had lost the sight of his right eye. Absalom was living in the house while Leo started running a company there. His dad never was able to ask him for a rent payment. Diana, the youngest, had lived under his older brother's shadow. She grew up as a coward and feeling alone when her mom died. At 17, she found herself pregnant and terrified. Instead of support, the wall of Leo, Doris, and Absalom's reprehension established a new enormous hole. In a moment of desperate rebellion, Diana disappeared. For years, the only news of her came in fragmented rumors. Absalom was living in his house with the bitterness of Doris' death. Now they shared the house with Diana's son, Leo, and his wife. A critical day suddenly crushed Diana. Her dad had suffered a car accident. When her son called her, she found the forgiveness she thought she had needed decades ago. After Absalom's release, Diana appeared at his door, and his eyes finally were clear. She had found the opportunity to hug the only person who still remembered the sound of her mom's voice. During the final months of Absalom's existence, Diana got closer. Her presence was his dad's happiness and Leo's restoration. They never spoke of the house nor the years they had lost. Instead, they spoke of funny childhood and the way Diana's son had become a teen. Diana cared their family with a tenderness that was not only an apology but also a gift. As she cared them, Absalom realized that the meaning of a life are the moments where the soul of a sweet family brights each other. One evening, Absalom felt that his final breath was coming. He wasn't afraid. He saw Diana sat by the window as he used to. He realized that through her, his story wouldn't end. He thought of Doris. With a final breath, Absalom let go their thoughts, finding the quiet and absolute love of the family who had guided him to the brightest door of the eternity. Queens versus Toms by Diana Quintero. In a crowded city where the tall buildings covered the sight of the mountains lived Elena. She had been lonely for a long time, but her life changed when she adopted Lilith, a calico cat which was a playful queen who turned every rug into a battlefield for toys. Elena got crazy about her kitten. However, she knew that Lilith needed a friend. On a sunny day, she traveled to the jungle. On the next day, she brought home Iki, a black tom with eyes like golden coins, who carried the spirit of adventure in his paws. Even when Iki was a strong cat, the city was becoming stressful for him. He had started to miss the sound of the leaves and felt trapped by the walls. He was crying for a few days, and Lilith, confused by his sadness, began to hide away. During an afternoon, there was a thunderstorm. The window was open with the force of the wind, and the sudden thunder provoked Iki to fall down. He ran down by a hole on a wall and escaped under the rain. Lilith was seeing that her brother was in danger, and she didn't hesitate. She jumped out into the urban jungle after him. Through darkness, Lilith found Ikki desperate. She started purring, and while her tail was dancing, Ikki could feel safe. He realized they were at gym. While they were playing happily, they felt the scent of Elena's balcony, so went back home. Elena was shivering and crying when Ikki fell into her arms. Then she noticed herself weeping with relief. Lilith was purring, and suddenly she rubbed against Elena's ankles. The noisy city with the rain on the glass was felt like a welcoming song for the new family who decided to purr together. The Breath After the Storm by Diana Quintero. Nathalie grew up in a quiet house full of judgment and envy. Her mother, Susan, walked room by room like a ghost. Lately, she was forgetting to water the seeds of her daughter's confidence. By the time Nathalie reached the university, the solitude inside her soul had become an entrance to the darkest of a hell. She expected to fill the empty space with the bitter flavor of alcoholic beverages and the worst psychoactives. She was looking for an open door to success. However, it always got shut out of reach. The time ran out until her ambitions had been lost. All the best job opportunities suddenly were flying away from her hands. Last but not least, her career path suddenly fell. Into this broken life Daniel appeared. He was a man whose charm was a mask for a terrifying volatility. 2 years, Natalie lived under the shadow of his storms. Their mad relationship reached a crucial point the night when the cold yellow psycho emerged from the deepest of Daniel. His hands turned lethal. In the blink of an eye, he had left Nathalie bleeding and hurt on the floor, blaming herself for the abyss of her life. From her remains on that night, Nathalie began the slow work of gathering herself. She found a place which she considered a sanctuary. A simple rubber mat, the rhythm of yoga and meditation taught her to inhabit her body without fear. Each breath was a reclamation. Each posture was a prayer for her value. It took years of healing until she started her own business. It was a space where she helped others to find their center. She was no longer defined by the shadows of her past. She became radiant and the master of her peace.